Have you ever puzzled over something? I mean, like a thought in your head that you just mulled over and over and over and over until maybe it made less sense than it would have if you'd taken it at face value? You know, sometimes Scripture is like that. I want to read Genesis chapter 1, verse 6 through 8, and maybe we'll understand a little bit better where I'm coming from. And God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." And God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse. And it was so. And God called the expanse heaven. And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. This is one of those passages in Scripture that I've heard kind of bent and twisted to mean a lot of things that it almost certainly doesn't. The thing that throws most people off is that there are waters above heaven and waters below heaven, and that heaven sits between the waters above the earth, but below some other water somewhere. This is the problem with the word heaven, at least in the English language, where it can mean the place where God is, or the place where we go when we die, or a metaphorical place of bliss, or an actual place of bliss, the state of being blissful, the sky directly above us, or maybe the universe beyond our planet. It's a flexible word, but that flexibility leads to some unclarity at times. Here the word heaven means the place directly above the earth, the sky. Heaven is where the birds fly. It's made up of the air we breathe. It's the space between us and the rest of the universe. The English word for it might be atmosphere. And somewhere above the part of the sky that we experience firsthand is a bunch of water. In ancient times, people knew that there was water somewhere up there. That's where the rains come from. In this context, the water above the sky is the water that comes as rain. The waters above. We'd call them clouds. Now, let's acknowledge, we know that the clouds are a part of the sky as we define it nowadays, but we also refer to the whole gap between the ground and outer space as the sky. That just wasn't the way these things were thought of in the ancient world. The heavens, or sky, were the area between man and the clouds. That was a practical definition of heavens. So when the second day happens in Genesis, we see that God is creating a space, and he's in control of the water above and below that space. He will provide the waters that the earth needs. He will send the rain at the right times and withhold it at the right times. The second day in Genesis is not an explanation about the water cycle, the spiritual realm of heaven, or modern cosmology and the order of the universe. The second day of Genesis is an assurance that God has created the system by which crops are watered, and that he's brought about a space in which our weather cycle takes place. He brought it about, and the good things that come from it are his doing. So when we read in Matthew chapter 5 that God sends his rain on the just and the unjust alike, we know that Matthew is writing from an absolute assurance that the rain is God's rain. And this is a theme that shows up throughout Scripture. God sometimes withholds rain, and God gives rain. It is his to do with as he wishes. I love you. And I pray today that you would have absolute confidence that God will send the rain when you need it, because it is his rain.